cottage. It had a bright red roof and a thick wooden door, like something out of a fairy story. Sometimes they invited her in for lemonade and biscuits. There were so many things she did not understand. They had learned at school that communism meant everybody was equal. But how could that be when they lived in such a big house, and everyone else, or almost everyone, apart from her parents' friends, lived in flats? Her home was perched on a hill overlooking Obuda. Alongside the wide road at the base of the hill, there were row upon row of panel lokashok, panel flats made from giant slabs of preformed concrete, sometimes 10 or 12 stories high, whole families crammed together in small apartments. That didn't seem very equal. She would think about that later. She looked down inside the box and smiled. For now, she had her treasure chest, and there was real treasure inside. A red velvet box with 4 rings, a long white silk scarf, or something like a scarf, more like a shawl, with blue stripes and extra bits of white string knotted along the bottom. A book, like one of her exercise books at school, but written in a strange alphabet like little blocks of ink. There was a photograph as well, of a young girl with curly blonde hair in a dark dress with a single row of buttons down the middle. She had taken the shawl out once, stood up and draped it around her shoulders. The garment was enormous on her, and its bottom spread out along the ground, the white strings trailing in the grass. The shawl felt light and delicate, smooth against the back of her neck, but it didn't feel right on her, made her shiver. She had folded it up and put it back in the box. She had not taken it out since. How had the exercise book got there, she wondered, and what did the writing say? She lifted it and held it to her nose. The paper smelled damp and musty. The pages had turned yellow, but the heavy black script was clear. She looked at her watch. It was almost 6:20. Time to pack up. They would be shouting for her soon, and she needed time to hide the treasure chest again and properly cover it with earth. She put the book and the white silk shawl back inside carefully. There was just enough time to quickly check her favourite things, the rings in the red velvet box, one that looked like a woman's ring, with quite a big diamond, and another with a black stone, that was a man's one, she thought, and 2 plain gold bands. The gold ones were her favourites. She took them out and placed them both in the palm of her left hand. One was bigger and heavier than the other. She guessed they must be wedding rings. And then she had an idea. One of those ideas that when it came to her made her think, why on earth didn't I think of that before? She held the big ring up to her eyes and looked at the inside. Inscribed in tiny letters was Miklos, 10th of August, 1933, Budapest. There was a name inside the small ring as well, Rahel, and the same date. Somehow the names gave her a funny feeling, the same as when she had put the shawl on. She quickly put the 2 rings in the red velvet case, put that back in the blue metal box, closed the lid, placed it back in the space by the tree roots, covered it all with the loose dirt, and smoothed it over. She stepped back, looked at her handiwork and smiled. Now nobody would know that anything was there. She rubbed her hands against each other, trying to brush the soil away. It didn't really work, but it didn't matter. She was a kid and was expected to get dirty in the garden. She skipped back to the house, looking forward to dinner. She was hungry now. For a moment, she felt the weight of the wedding rings in her palm again, heard the sound of the 2 names in her head, Miklos and Rahel, wondered about their fate. Then her mother appeared, calling her with her arms wide open, telling her it was time for dinner. Her stomach rumbled, and she ran towards her.